And the Bible talks about the darkness covering the earth and deep darkness the people. And the more I read it every week, and the more I read it, the more I look around and see this happening in our time. That darkness is covering people, and yet the glory of the Lord is arising on people. Because God will never be outdone. So it doesn't matter what's happening in the world. God is always going to have sons. God is always going to raise up a people to glorify him. And so we've been talking about arise, shine, for your light has come. Somebody say, my light. Now, when you look at light scientifically, the interesting thing about light is that light exists on a spectrum, okay? The light that we see is the smallest portion of the spectrum. I said the light that we see is the smallest portion of the spectrum. In the center, I should have brought the picture. In the center of the spectrum is what's called visible light. Outside of that spectrum are the most powerful bands of the spectrum of light, which tells us that the most powerful aspects of light are unseen. That the reality is that we live in a world where people say, well, I only move by what I see. But your eyes are limited to what's actually physically here, let alone what doesn't exist in this realm. So the reality is that there are things that are happening in the unseen realm that are more real than things that are happening here. As a matter of fact, things that are happening in the unseen realm are where things that occur here originate. So when God begins to raise up a person, he causes a person to arise, he starts to deal with things spiritually before he ever promotes somebody on a platform. He starts in the unseen. He starts with a small church that nobody's paying attention to. He starts with unseen. He starts working in places that nobody's paying attention to, and in the places of the spirit realm that people ignore. That's where God starts doing his work, because that's the origin, or excuse me, that's the realm of origination. So the Bible tells us in Hebrews that everything that we see came from the unseen. There's nothing that is visible in this life, whether it's manufactured or whether it's something that we see manifesting in your life. All of it originates in the unseen realm. You say, well, I'm so glad God is prospering on my job. It originated somewhere. I'm so glad God brought this person into my life to be my spouse. It originated, someone was praying for you. Something took place in the unseen realm to produce something in your life. So we need to keep in mind that when God is doing something, it always starts in the unseen. The Bible says God raised up Jeremiah, but before Jeremiah was raised as a prophet, the Bible says before, in the unseen, before I formed you, I knew you. I sanctified you, and I ordained you. So God in the unseen realm says, I see all that I have for this person, and I'm going to sanctify it. I'm going to pour my oil on it before they ever step into a body. So you come in containing what you need to arise. You come into the earth containing what you need to arise. So when the enemy sees angels moving in your house and around your life, and he sees the activity, the enemy, even when you're a child, there are angels that are assigned to your life as a child. So when the enemy sees what's happening, he begins moving in the unseen realm. And you thought those people saying those things to you as a child just was because kids are mean. But that originated somewhere. My wife and I used to talk all the time about how she would be on this job, and then later on in life she'd be on this job, and later on in life she'd be on this job. And the accusations would always be the same. Why are they the same, but we're dealing with different people and different companies? Because they're originating from somewhere. So the attack that came to stop you from arising to what God already saw and anointed you to be. The Bible says, arise, shine, for your light has come. Your light has come. The Bible says that God is light. And I came from him, which means I'm light. That the moment I was born again, that light was supposed to shine, reflecting the origin of where I came from. There's even a verse I love in the New Testament. I'm going to get to the scriptures here, but there's a verse I love in the New Testament that says that we should walk as children of the light. The Amplified Bible says, walk as those native born to the light. Walk as if this is your original estate, that this is where you came from, that this is where your nature was developed, your culture was developed. This is who you are as a person. Walk as if you came from heaven. Walk as if this culture is your first nature. Because I am light. This is what God is calling us to. So the enemy sets up assignments to try and steal your light. He sets up things to try and depress you, to try and oppress you, to break your self-esteem. Because you think self-esteem doesn't matter in the spirit realm, but it does. It matters. Somebody say it matters. We're going to go to 1 Samuel 7. God, Lord, I am, he is pouring, man. 1 Samuel 7. The interesting thing about what's happening here is that, hey, nephew, the interesting thing about what's happening in this chapter is that Israel has gotten the Ark of the Covenant back, right? They've got the Ark of the Covenant back, and the reason they got it back is not because they went and got it. They got the Ark of the Covenant back because the Philistines sent it back as fast as they could. And they sent it back with an offering. It's so funny. They even sent it back with gold remnants of what they were tortured by. So they had boils and tumors that were showing up. So they made gold tumors fashioned after the tumors that were on their body. They sent it back with gold rats because that's what was happening to them. They sent it back after Dagon had fallen and his hands had fallen off and his head had fallen off. They said, enough is enough. So the Ark of the Covenant has come back, and it's in the camp of Israel. And the Bible says in verse 1 that the men of Kirjath-jearim came and took the Ark of the Lord and brought it into the house of Abinadab on the hill and consecrated Eleazar his son to keep the Ark of the Lord. So it was that the ark remained in Kirjath-jearim a long time. It was there 20 years. And all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. So the ark is back, but they're weeping. And they're mourning. And they're not mourning because the ark is back. They're mourning because the ark is back, but the glory is missing. They're mourning because the ark is back, but it has not restored Israel to what it was because Israel was being maintained by the glory of God. Israel was being sustained by the glory of God. This is the original design. That's why before God created the sun and the moon, everything was being sustained in the light of his glory. So the ark is back, but there's no glory. For 20 years. And the Bible says in verse 2, look at verse 3. Then Samuel spoke to all the house of Israel, saying, if you return to the Lord with all your hearts, then put away the foreign gods and the Asherah from among you. One translation says Baal and Asherah. You have to ask yourself the question, why is the glory gone? The glory is gone because God is not going to compete with another altar. The glory is gone because they thought that they could have the glory and the idols. They thought that they could have